Genzou is an awesome strong Gigachad Rey Mysterio wannabe who left his shining wrestling career to simp over animals. One day he gets summoned to another world by a princess to save their weak asses from the demon army. There he realizes there is infinite potential to touch every animal and German suplex every girl while trying to collect money to open his weird little pet shop. But before this, while fighting his biggest nemesis, the macadamian ogre, Genzou, and his doggo Hiroyuki jump into the air and get isekai'd. He then finds himself in a room full of priests and knights with his weird pants. Everyone suspects he is gonna do some pretty sus things in this wannabe gimp outfit, and Genzou isn't helping himself by staying incredibly still and only looking at the lowly princess in front of him. The princess informs him that she has summoned him as a hero to help them fight against the Demon King's armies of beasts. Genzou gets very intrigued by this and immediately approaches the princess in a very frisky way. The princess doesn't really seem to mind and wants them to get a room, but Genzou does what he does best and hits her with that German suplex riz, planting her face first into the floor with her pants visible to everyone in the room. All the knights and priests in the room get super pissed, and Genzou realizes that he might have gone overboard and quickly covers the princess with his cape. This doesn't work for shit though, and very soon he is forced to take Hiroyuki, jump straight through the window and run as fast as possible. He reaches a town, but no one really wants to talk to him cause he is still in a gimp suit, so they are afraid of what he might do. He takes off his mask to escape from everyone looking for him, but that doesn't really help much either. While catching his breath in a shady alley, Genzou gets approached by a girl with cat ears and a legit wolf dude. Being the king of disgusting furries, Genzou immediately becomes super down bad to touch their fur. He jumps on top of the wolf dude and starts sniffing his fur and scratching him, which inevitably leads to the poor wolf turning his gray fur white in some parts. Just as Genzou is about to jump onto the cat girl, a girl with wolf ears comes out of a random door, and it seems that she is being sold off as a slave by a pirate wannabe. The wolf ears make Genzou's sword grow, and he is already thinking about some sus wolf cheeks, so he interferes and plants the dude into the ground. The cat girl and wolf dude take the poor pirate guy away, and Genzou talks to the girl with the wolf ears. She introduces herself as Shiger and reveals she was actually the one who agreed to be sold if she couldn't pay her loans, as she also wants to get filthy rich. Genzou concludes that she is a loser and he would know cause he is the king of weirdos, and weirdos can just tell sometimes. Following this, they go to the Hunter Guild because Genzou is pretty confident his unhealthy love for animals is gonna earn him some fat cash. He talks to the dude in charge of the guild and yaps on and on about how his love for all animals is unmatched. Just as the guild master starts thinking about who the fuck let this creep in, a couple of weak-ass hunters enter and say that a pack of Cerberus is causing some trouble. This is all the info Genzou needs, cause he is already imagining how soft their fur must be and is already on his way there. In the forest, Genzou refuses a weapon and deduces that Cerberus must be like dogs, which means that he can just befriend the pack leader, and they're all gonna be Gucci. By befriending the pack leader, Genzou meant to aggressively pin him down and start sniffing his doggy peaches. The Cerberus leader is just as uncomfortable as the people watching, but he quickly gets subdued and Genzou tames the pack. Back at the guild, Genzou and Shiger get some fat peas for dealing with the Cerberus issue, and Genzou decides that he will make this world one where all demon beasts and humans can live together in perfect harmony. An ugly massive ant decides that he wants to be the third wheel in this already super weird relationship and just chills at the table with them. However, Genzou is not finished with the yapping and is going on about how they can show their great love to every being, and this way no one will harm them. Everyone around them talks about how they took heavy damage from demon beasts, but Genzou doesn't really seem to hear this. He tells Shiger that he's got a perfect way to show his love for all animals and demon beasts and open a pet shop. Shiger, however, has absolutely no idea what a pet shop is. Genzou tries to explain what exactly it is, but the only thing she hears is the sound of money. They quickly figure out that to open a pet shop they first need a house to live in and to store all of the zillion creatures crazy-ass Genzou plans to capture. To get a house they need a shit ton of money, which means a lot of quests, so they decide to have Shiger join Genzou's party. They take a look at the quest board, but Genzou's dumb face can't read, so he has no idea what pays and what doesn't. At that exact moment, a random hunter approaches them and tells Genzou that everyone has been calling him the demon beast unaliver because of what he did to the Cerberus. This leads to the dude promptly being implanted into a nearby wall because Genzou, being the wimp he is, hates being called such cool names, and prefers to be known as an animal furry gimp king. They find a book with information about demon beasts and decide to go for the highest paying quest, which is a salamander. When Shigeru shows him what a salamander looks like, Genzou instantly begins imagining sus scenarios. Just at this moment, the strongest hero of this guild, Heat Haze, enters the building and invites Genzou and Shigeru to join them on the quest to unalive the salamander. This of course turns out to be a big mistake, because Genzou turns into a master of spinjutsu and eats poor Heat Haze halfway across the guild, and Shigeru finds that this is the perfect time to steal Haze's sword, which he conveniently dropped next to her. Soon after, Genzou tames the salamander in approximately 5 seconds and brings him back to the guild to claim the cash. There, the dude at the desk makes a crucial mistake and calls Genzou the demon beast unaliver, for which he is punished severely by having his head smashed through the roof. Meanwhile, the wolf dude and cat girl from the beginning are chilling in their house, with the wolf guy still very clearly traumatized from his last encounter with Genzou. Shigeru and Genzou enter their house and weird duo practically shit themselves. However, turns out that the surprise visit is actually so Shigeru can pay Edgar the eye patch dude the money she owed him. Meanwhile, a cute little girl with horns and a tail is chilling in a big ass castle looking at some bussin' food in a cookbook. Fast forward 5 seconds to her at the dinner table, and the food is looking not so bussin'. She decides that enough is enough and that she is sick of all the F-tier orc and troll meat she gets served in this castle, and that she wants to venture into the real world and taste some Michelin star level food. A few hours later, Genzou and Shigeru walk through a forest and talk about their next targets, monkey soldiers. Shigeru asks what he thinks, and he says that he of course thinks they will have nice hairy cheeks, being the weirdo furry he is. The monkeys look pretty pissed at first, but it turns out that these are some Uno reverse monkeys, because instead of bananas they are down bad for some apples. Even though Genzou now has a shit ton of animals, he still doesn't have a house to put them in, so it's quest time once more. Genzou and Shigeru notice that there are some orcs stealing crops from a nearby village, and decide that since orcs are not really animals, that it is indeed smacking orc o'clock. Meanwhile, at the shady castle, a blessed woman in a fanservice maid outfit yaps about how she'll bring someone back, which will be important later. On the way to the orc settlement, Shigeru decides that it is clothless bathing time, and Genzou once again proves that he is a kinky ass furry when he completely disregards her and jumps over to pet a unicorn. Once they arrive, Genzou fights the Orc King and absolutely smacks the living shit out of him with his epic wrestling moves, plants him in the ground as usual, and the orcs accept him as their new king. Genzou leaves the previous king in charge of the village and returns home with Shigeru. Back in the guild, they find out from a banker that they have enough to get a house, but are still broke as fuck and don't have nearly enough for the pet shop, so they go home pretty bummed out. In their new house, poor Shigeru realizes that due to Genzou's weird-ass unhealthy animal obsession, they'll soon run out of space because of all the animal cages. On top of that, he is also wasting all of their food on the beasts. Poor Shigeru can't handle that anymore and leaves to find a high-paying job. While working on the roof, Genzou meets the love of his life when a very furry woman in a pink dress walks by, and Genzou almost explodes on the spot, falls off the roof, and immediately tries to use that disgusting furry riz. The woman blushes and finds the situation a little weird because she's got a husband and over 20 kids. She then runs away to do some shopping, although she is clearly down bad for Genzou too. Hiroyuki barks and ends up finding the girl with the horns and tails that escaped from the castle, sleeping in the bushes, and this cures Genzou's lifelong depression. When she wakes up, she is shocked to find the Giga Ant staring at her, but Genzou quickly enters the room and starts rizzing her horns and tail. She introduces as Lindabulia and reveals she is a half-dragon. Genzou, being the furry he is, can barely contain himself when given this new information. However, Lindabulia is pretty much a disgusting hungry pig and wants to eat every single animal in Genzou's house, including poor Hiroyuki. Genzou is about to deliver his 17th pet shop explainer speech, yet he keeps getting surprised that people don't know what a pet shop is in this universe when a freaking 6'3" ant is doing all of his housekeeping. After Genzou rescues Hiroyuki from getting eaten yet again, Lindabulia says she's got something else to eat in her stash and leaves the house. Shigeru wants to smack Genzou's dimwit for bringing in a dragon when they already have only water to eat. She is the only one amongst these useless creatures in this house actually thinking about the horrible financial situation, and she has found a high-paying job in the shape of taking down a demon beast that has been biting and injuring a shit ton of townspeople. They go to the guild to talk about the quest, and Heat Haze offers his help, but he proceeds to call Genzou the demon beast unaliver again, and his fate ends up unchanged, smacked into the floor with Shigeru stealing his new sword. Shigeru says that this beast is definitely a dragon, and perhaps even the same one from earlier that day. For some reason, big brain Genzou thinks that wearing his animal mask will work as a Batman alter ego of sorts, and uses his disguise and of course some food to capture Lindabulia in a cage. Lindabulia, on the other hand, being the simple-minded idiot she is, doesn't recognize this masterful disguise, and even gets worried about the things he will do to her now that she is captured, not knowing that Genzou is only a massive furry, not a lolicon. Only for them to have to immediately run from people thinking that he was trying to have his way with her. Just then they run into the woman in the maid outfit, and despite her attempt at a villain monologue, they both begin throwing rocks at her. Lindabulia calls her Carmilla, which shows she knows more than she is letting on. Carmilla tries to act tough with her big ass melons, but Genzou breaks her like a twig, and he and Lindabulia run away. Genzou then once again proves why he is possibly the most intelligent person alive when he comes up with a plan for Lindabulia to also put on a mask so that the people looking for only one masked guy instead of a couple get confused. On their way home they run into Shigeru, who immediately recognizes them and manages to get them out of this shitty situation and back to the house. Lindabulia then finally realizes that Animal Mask and Genzou are the same person, which once again proves that she is not much smarter than Hiroyuki. Carmilla arrives, and she also seems fooled by the mask as she doesn't recognize Genzou despite the fact that he smoked her in battle only 10 minutes ago. Lindabulia actually belongs to a mysterious Fafnir family that serves the Demon King, and that there are more mysteries there beneath the surface, like how insanely dumb the Demon King must be when this is one of his most trusted servants. Also turns out that Carmilla is a vampire, as Shigeru hands Genzou some holy water, which he eats at Carmilla's face, and even gives him a garlic which he attempts to stuff in her mouth while pinning her down on the floor. Luckily, Lindabulia is there to calm down the situation and stop it from escalating further. She says that she is sick of being in the Fafnir household, mainly because the food they served there was pretty crap, and she wants to try out all the delicious food in the world. That's why she decides to stay with Genzou and help him with the pet shop. She also realized her name is long as shit and decided to shorten it to just Hanako to everyone's relief. It also turns out that Carmilla was the demon beast that attacked the poor townspeople because she got a little bored. And Genzou of course decides to plant her head first into the floor using his good old German suplex with her pants for everyone to see in melons fighting against gravity. A few days later, the princess is still thinking about how Genzou could have clapped her cheeks if only she was nicer to him. She quickly realizes that absolutely everyone is calling her princess butt cheeks behind her back because Genzou showcased her clappable cheeks to the entire room of knights and priests. The princess, however, only longs for Genzou's touch and will do anything to find him. Meanwhile, Genzou and co. are still broke as fuck because Hanako's is on a mission to gain 1,000 pounds and Carmilla's is testing how much alcohol is needed to unalive a vampire, while Genzou can't stop touching and hoarding new animals. The only one actually working is Shigeru, and even she isn't doing too good because she's far from the strongest person in the house. Genzou's dumbass keeps feeding the freaking animals caviar while everyone else basically gets to eat water. Even cats aren't safe from Genzou, and Shigeru decides that enough is enough and kicks the newly tamed cat out. This leaves Genzou is heartbroken, just like his parents when he told them he was gonna be a wrestler, but Shigeru doesn't care. A few moments later, the banker dude Claus, who looks like he has never touched grass, enters their house, and Shigeru is happy as f because she knows that bankers deal with money, and she is the queen of all gold diggers. Unfortunately for her, the banker tells them that the deadline for the payment has come and they don't have even close to the amount. Somehow this resonates with their useless asses, so they decide to try some top 10 student side hustles to earn some extra cash. Genzou becomes Minecraft Steve and Carmilla becomes what she does best, a call girl trying to get that vitamin D even though she can't. Hanako, being the hungry little pig as usual, goes for an eating competition, and Shigeru works as a waitress. All of these jobs go to shit because they are just too useless to even be able to earn money other than Shigeru, who is the only one who ends up not fired by the end of the first day. Genzou may have gotten fired, but that sure as shit doesn't stop him from bringing in another one of his future victims, this time a bird which just won't shut up. Shigeru gets super annoyed and wants to put the bird in a soup when the bird keeps telling her that Carmilla's got bigger melons than her. A couple days later, Shigeru goes to find another way to earn money because her housemates are basically a lost cause. The guild leader tells her that there is a griffin which offers a fat wad of cash if defeated. She is soon joined by the entire Scooby-Doo useless gang and presents her idea to capture the griffin to them. But not before Genzou plants heat haze into the floor, who yet again calls him the demon beast unaliver. The kleptomaniac that she is Shigeru yet again steals his weapon. They all somehow agree to go after the griffin for their own reasons. Hanako to see if he's tasty, Carmilla to see if he's tasty but not quite in the same way, Shigeru to earn some fat cash, and Genzou to adopt and potentially make some more griffin babies. On the way there, Genzou decides to bend Carmilla's spine a little bit in an attempt to make her melons even bigger. Very quickly, they come across two griffins, and it turns out that what they've read in the Beast book is true. The griffin is a sick son of a bitch and makes its babies fight against each other and will only look after the winner. Genzou runs into the baby griffins like a madman, and the gang is not sure whether he wants to rub them or rescue them, or both. He manages to snatch the loser of the baby griffins, and now two very pissed griffins are after them. Carmilla tries to fight back, but even the griffins can't resist her vampire melons and decide to give them a nibble. Shigeru wants to save Carmilla, but Genzou prefers the new baby griffin and wants to leave her to her call girl ways. The griffin intercepts them, and Genzou is forced to have his way with the griffin. But the griffin ain't no wolf dude and doesn't let Genzou scratch its fur for too long before using him as a pickaxe and smashing him into the ground. This leaves Hanako to fight them and save useless Genzou, while Shigeru goes home to protect the baby griffin because she is weak as f***. Hanako reaches the house practically at the same time as Shigeru, and she tells her that the griffins weren't too tasty, so they ran away instead. Carmilla needs to heal up, so they put her into the ground like the piece of shit she is. A few days have passed, and the baby griffin is now full up to full size, kinda like Genzou when he sees the furry neighbor he is in love with. On the other side, Shigeru is about to end it all because of the food costs of this massive griffin, and goes to earn some more cash by selling the swords she keeps stealing from Heat Haze. At home, Genzou is still doing his loser activities and is bitching about how he doesn't want to go on any quests in case he misses the waking up of the puppy he brought home recently. Shigeru isn't having any of that loser crap and drags him out so that they can get back to her favorite activity, which is making some money. The whole gang ends up joining, and they go on a quest to get some Dradradagola, the Guinness World Record holder for the most annoying plant in the world. While they're gone, the wolf dude, whose name is Gang, and cat girl Miss Shaw go by Genzou's house because Gang can only stop being a weakling once Genzou is gone. Their plan is to lure Hiroyuki with a piece of meat so they can steal him and sell him off. They approach him, and Hiroyuki is pretty happy to be slobbering on a random stranger's piece of meat. Luckily, the Giga Ant is there, and he becomes Rock Lee for a second, putting the bang in Gang's name. So Miss Shaw and Gang just return home to Edgar pissed and smacked up as usual. In their house, Gang goes through his traumatic experiences with the ant while in bed, thinking that he would have preferred another night with Genzou to this, and Miss Shaw sits by his side wondering why Genzou never touched her skinny peaches. While this is going on, Genzou and the crew are in the forest looking for the plants, and Genzou bitches non-stop about how they're looking for plants instead of animals. But it dissipates even quicker when he finds that they are just boring, ugly Harry Potter looking plants. Genzou gets pissed when Carmilla says that he is actually just a gold digger and decides to try to plant her into the ground. Shigeru joins the conversation as soon as she heard the phrase gold digger, so she tries to escalate the fight a little bit. Just then, they notice that the plants are no longer screaming and turn around to see Hanako's fat ass, with only a bunch of leaves remaining and traces of brown all around her mouth. When they return to the house, the Giga Ant tells Genzou that poor Hiroyuki almost fell for the old slobber meat trick and that he had to go all Rock Lee on Gang and Miss Chaw's asses. Genzou gets super pissed and decides to go punish Miss Chaw and Gang by clapping them so hard they end up merging together. He very promptly gets to their house, and first his Saitama punches Gang halfway across the town, and then decides to calm his nerves by turning Gang's stupid ass into a fidget spinner and throwing him into a random bale of hay. While spinning him around, Genzou gets flashbacks of his wrestling days and remembers his greatest enemy, Mao. Meanwhile, Mao enters his depression era because Genzou disappeared on him in the middle of their match. He thinks that Genzou is a weakling and that he disappeared to escape from his powerful Kasama teeth. Being insecure as shit, Mao goes around every single talk show talking about how Genzou is a loser, and that he should return to finish the fight. He has become mega depressed and is even doing loser things like walking around with headphones listening to Adele while looking at sunsets. Everywhere he goes he sees Genzou's mask, and his wrestler wannabe ass is crying a river every day when reminded that his boo animal mask isn't there. He grows so obsessed with Genzou that a doctor legit diagnoses him with animal mask obsession disorder, and gives him a knitting kit so he can calm down. This doesn't work for shit, and he keeps knitting Genzou's animal mask. Just then, an evil-looking lowly bitch who claims that she is the next in line vampire leader decides that enough is enough and that she needs to summon a demon king from another world. Given that Princess Cheesecakes has summoned a hero, this demon king turns out to be none other than the obsessed loser Mao, and the lowly introduces herself with a Wi-Fi password sounding name. Mao's got no idea where he is, and immediately the main lowly's maid comes up to him and shows him a picture of the hero Princess Cheesecakes has summoned. Mao recognizes his wet dream in the shape of Genzou in a millisecond and gets super excited that he has finally found what he thinks is Genzou's hideout, and is ready to take him on. Mao is taken to an armory to pick out a weapon, but even such a big beta like him knows it would be against the rules to have a weapon in a wrestling match. A few hours after this, the lowly Joanna and her maid Rose talk about how cool it is that Mao already hates the hero. Joanna says that she will finally be able to crush her biggest enemy Hanako if she is able to get her fat ass away from all the food. A flashback revealed a young Joanna was training to fight Hanako. Hanako thought that Joanna was a mop and absolutely wiped the floor with her sorry ass. Joanna was a giga-sore loser and wanted a rematch, while Hanako had reverted to full-on monkey mode and was only thinking about food. After eating like Bear Grylls after a 70-day camp, Hanako was up for the rematch and wiped the floor with Joanna again, who was clearly a masochistic bitch because she apparently loved getting clapped. Joanna then went full Mao mode and became a legit stalker and started obsessing over Hanako. A few years later, Joanna and her ugly servant Rose bumped into Hanako and Carmilla in the hallway of a castle. Since Joanna was not food, Hanako had no idea who she was. Joanna being the a-hole, she was called out Hanako for having a disgusting lesser vampire like Carmilla for a servant, whereas her Rose was an elder vampire. Since she was hungry AF and hurrying to get to the kitchen to clap some cheesecakes, she agreed for poor old drunk Carmilla to fight Rose, and if Rose won, Joanna got to pick out an actually competent servant for Hanako. Carmilla was scared because she knew she was super weak and was never gonna win, but Hanako didn't really seem to care because the issue wasn't food related. Later that night, they all got together to enjoy the shit show that was gonna ensue. Carmilla decided to fight in her usual skimpy outfit, and Rose decided to pretend to be elegant for the night. They started fighting, and at first Carmilla was doing well and Hanako was wondering if she had put some steroids in her drink, but Rose promptly destroyed her like the sad little bitch he was. Carmilla started crying and even tried to pull off Rose's pants to see if there was perhaps another way they could make a compromise. While Rose did actually contemplate it for a second, she quickly came to her senses. Joanna was gonna explode how happy she was and insisted Hanako give Carmilla up immediately. Hanako proved that she was more than just a hungry little idiot when she refused to give poor weak Carmilla up and even knelt in front of Joanna's sadistic ass. On their way home, Joanna and Rose were bigging each other up, all satisfied and happy that they had finally beaten Hanako, and just then their carriage stopped. They went out and saw a very calm but very pissed Hanako starting to undress herself. Even though they wanted to see some lowly melons, they were still kinda skeptical. Joanna thought that she was there to beg them not to tell anyone about how Carmilla lost, but Hanako was actually there because she was hungry. She turned into a beast and absolutely scared the shit out of both Joanna and Rose, while also folding them like shirts on laundry day. Back to the present, Joanna is still pissed about how she looked like a complete weakling every time she faced Hanako, and has severe PTSD. On top of all of this, Joanna finds out that Hanako is chilling with the hero and immediately thinks that they are clapping each other and is ready to go out to investigate. All while this is happening, Carmilla is chilling in her piss spot in the ground, healing from being useless on a quest yet again, and Genzou can no longer tolerate her bullshit, so he starts burying her head as well. Hanako watches them and starts thinking how she should have perhaps traded her in for a normal servant, seeing how utterly miserable she looks. The very next day, while Genzou is elbow deep inside his salamander, a girl with massive melons entered their house proclaiming that her name was Seals the Hunter. She calls Genzou the demon beast unaliver, and Genzou promptly karate chops her head and quickly takes her through a couple of positions from the Kama Sutra. However, instead of being satisfied, Seals ends up crying like a bitch and having to be consoled by Shigeru, Hanako, and Carmilla. Genzou refers to Carmilla as the maid, which angers her despite the skimpy maid outfit she is constantly wearing. To everyone's surprise, Seals says that she talked to the guild master and that she is here because she wants Genzou to train her. Genzou refuses because she doesn't want to be trained in the art of creepy weirdo furriness, but in fact wants to be battle trained. Being super desperate, Seals tries to offer to pay with her juicy melons, but doesn't understand that she's one tail short of making Genzou even look at her. Genzou replies that she isn't even half as attractive as the kobold neighbor he has been thirsting over. Genzou is about to clap her one more time when he touches her stomach, only to find that she is actually a lizardman. Seals showcases her lizard six-pack, and Genzou has forgotten all about the kobold and is already planning a date for their wedding. She says that her ancestors were lizardmen and that is why she's only got scales on her stomach and back. She is just about to strip and Genzou already salivates, but Shigeru and Hanako intervene just in time. Genzou agrees to train her only because he's thirsty for some lizard cheeks, and they head to the mountain to begin the training arc. Seals starts doing squats and Genzou is eating up her melons with his eyes, wondering where else she might also be scaly. Seals says that she has scales only on her stomach, so he quickly becomes Arnold and adapts her training plan perfectly to only core and back. Shigeru tells her that she's gonna be able to train her far better than creepy ass Genzou, and tells her to follow her into the forest. Hanako, however, wants to teach her the art of being a hungry little brat and gives her a massive spider and orders her to eat it. Carmilla, on the other hand, being the call girl she is, wants to teach her hot pose. Seals goes through the rocky training montage, and soon enough Genzou tells her that there is nothing else he can teach her. He also gives her her very own wrestling mask and names her Seals XL, which everyone agrees is a great name considering her massive juicy melons. Seals, however, thinks this is too small and wants to be named Seals Quadruple XL, and she throws down the mask saying that she doesn't want to be a stupid, pathetic wrestler. She finally decides to tell them why she approached Genzou to train her in the first place. The hunters from the guild were teasing her cause of her lizardy six-pack, and Genzou loses his shit and goes sicko mode with his clothes ripping and everything. He runs over to the guild and starts tearing the place up, planting people into the floor, wall, ceiling, left, right, and center. By the time the guild master goes out of his room, there isn't anyone standing but Genzou himself. The guild master tries to intervene by calling Genzou the demon beast unaliver for the 174th time, and Genzou, just dead-faced, tells him that he will rip his disgusting little beard off if he calls him that one more time. The master tries to talk to Genzou to see what the problem is, and Genzou explains that the puny little hunters have been teasing the living shit out of poor Seals as well as doing sus things to her, and that he has had enough. Seals said that they haven't done anything to her and that she is over those little cuck idiots and now only wants to be a wonderful person like her teacher. Shigeru, Carmilla, and Hanako are all super happy that her character arc is complete, and even the ugly soldiers grow a pair of balls and start apologizing. This is far from enough for Genzou, and he forces the soldiers and Seals to clap each other. In battle, he explains to Seals that she has to beat them flat, which she finds quite hard considering how flat she isn't, because their apologies aren't close to enough to compensate for all the trouble that they caused her. She tries to assure him that everything is fine, but Genzou, being the weirdo he is, just won't back off until he's defended the honor of one of his prized beasts. She then challenges a disgusting red-haired dude to battle to see if the skills the broke loser gang have been teaching her all day have amounted to anything. She starts fighting and she holds on pretty decently. The whole gang shouts for her to use the tips that they have taught her, and after bringing the red-haired loser into a pretty shitty position, she proves that her IQ is not much higher than that of a flower pot and does the hot pose that Carmilla had taught her previously that day. This causes the red-haired freak to disarm her. But even weaponless, she remembers her master Genzou's training lesson and German suplexes the loser into the floor, planting him headfirst just like Genzou taught her. They are all happy, and she agrees to a draw with the red-haired weakling wanting to fight him again in the future, but the impossibly petty ass Genzou still can't let the situation go. The hunters explain that they have just been frustrated cause a tiger mask-wearing demon beast has been snatching beasts right out of their hands. This causes the whole gang to give bombastic side eyes towards Genzou, and he finally agrees to let it go. After they return home, Claus the banker comes to their house, and having seen this fight proposes to make a wrestling tournament. Genzou wants to go back to being a loser, but his muscles are screaming for him to fight, so he accepts, and everyone is super hyped up for the tournament. Especially the hungry little fat ass Hanako, considering that there is gonna be food there. After a few days, they have built the ring exactly how Genzou described, and final preparations are being made for the tournament. Meanwhile, Shiger and Claus, the money-hungry idiots they are seeing dollar signs in their eyes just looking at how many people have gathered around the ring. Genzou is however unsatisfied because he thinks that there should be more animals involved in the tournament. This leads to Shiger almost unaliving herself, but she complies with his wishes, and they turn the tournament into a hybrid tournament with both demon beasts and humans, which Genzou is super happy about because he gets to touch them all he wants while they fight. And just then the kobold neighbor that Genzou thinks about while doing his arm workouts appears, and it is clear she also wants a piece of that Genzou cake. Genzou approaches her and tells her that he is going to her house, and she starts leaking from her furry body, thinking about how Genzou will fight her husband to steal her away. Few hours later, her husband returns from work looking like a cross between Zorro and a werewolf, all while holding a pickaxe, only to find his wife as well as Genzou and Shiger waiting for him in his house. He gets super pissed about Genzou being in his house and starts fighting him immediately. He manages to deal good damage to Genzou before Genzou inevitably plants him into the ground. This gives the guy flashbacks, and he remembers his days as a warrior. When he comes to, he leaves his sad little wife and goes to join the tournament with Genzou. Meanwhile, Miss Shaw is trying to talk to Gang, but he is hiding under a blanket cause he is still super traumatized from Genzou and needs a psychiatrist immediately. Just as she was finally able to get him to exit the blanket, Genzou and Shiger arrive at their door, and the two just completely shit themselves. Genzou asks him to join the tournament, but the Stockholm Syndrome isn't kicking in quite yet, and he goes back to hiding under the blanket. Instead, Miss Cha signs up so she can get revenge on Genzou, and Genzou gets a little too excited while looking at her tail and ears, so he accepts. Next, Shiger and Genzou decide to visit the orcs, and it turns out Genzou has made them into a bunch of weaklings because they are planting some flowers. Genzou invites them to the tournament, and they are happy to join because he is practically their human daddy, and they can't really say no. Back at the Genzou household, Carmilla is being a massive creep and smelling Hanako's clothes and salivating all over them. Just at that time, Genzou and Co. arrive back, and Genzou orders her to also join the fight, cause she is growing more weird every minute she is left alone. Hanako, being the little idiot, steals the food from Genzou's annoying bird, and the bird cries like a bitch. A few hours later, they are all at the ring, and the troops are really confused as to why there are beastmen and men in the same place. Heat Haze has also joined the tournament, and his dumb ass says that he will use his weapon on beastmen, which leads to Genzou smashing him into the ground. His new spear very conveniently falls into Shiger's sticky hands, and she doesn't hesitate to take it. Just as Genzou starts explaining to these idiots how wrestling works, some random dude brings bread, and Hanako's dumb brain takes this as the perfect opportunity to have a little snack break. Meanwhile, Princess Cheesecakes is informed of the tournament as the poster has Genzou going all sus on Carmilla, which gives her some flashbacks. The next day in their planning tent, Shiger and Claus's money-hungry selves are inventing capitalism and trying to juice the last drop of money from the poor stupid little idiots that will come to watch this pathetic tournament. Genzou tries to make a sparring day for everyone, which turns to shit immediately. Carmilla and Miss Cha, being the sad alcoholic beings they are, just get drunk in the ring, and Hanako sees seals as a snack and tries to eat her, and everything is going south as people fight with boxing gloves instead of wrestling. Poor Genzou is still trying to teach the rules of wrestling to this hopeless bunch of idiots, while Hanako has discovered the food stands and is about to cause a nationwide hunger. Shiger, on the other hand, has taken up the classic influencer approach and is starting to sell very thirsty looking merch, and she already has her first fan, a girl that is looking to buy some juicy muscles on a shirt. The tournament starts, and the people are going hog wild in the crowd. The first fight is between orcs and some hunters, and the orcs beat the living crap out of them. At the same time, Hanako has been relegated to a pathetic commentator because she tried to eat the kobold. This, however, isn't stopping her from being the disgusting pig she is, and she keeps eating. The next fight is Seals 50 versus the kobold dude, and Seals suffocates him with her massive melons. After this, Genzou and Carmilla fight against Heat Haze and Miss Cha, and Carmilla starts kicking Genzou's ugly ass face in instead of the opponents, but Genzou soon gets her in control and they manage to smash them up. Right then, a cloaked figure undresses himself and he is revealed to be Gang, who has finally grown a pair of balls and stopped being a weakling and decided to come out and play. He is allowed to get into the match and fights with his sister instead of Haze. The crowd knows Gang is a wimp who was beaten by Genzou already, but he stands up and fights anyways. Genzou and Carmilla still absolutely turn them into a disgusting pulpy mess as Genzou jumps onto Gang and rubs him until Gang blossoms like a flower in spring. A few hours later, everybody is super happy and celebrates at the guild, and Shigure's insides are practically throbbing at the mere thought of all the fat wads of cash they have earned. For a second there, she sees the world Genzou wants, with all the demon beasts and humans chilling together. However, all the food that Hanako gobbled up, all the drinks Carmilla drank, as well as all the crazy damage everyone made during preparations has to be paid by Shigure. Back in the house as she is scolding everyone, Shigure really wants to off herself but somehow manages to go on. And they are back to being poor as f*** and eating salt water to survive. The next morning, Genzou still treats Carmilla like a maid and tries to make her take Hiroyuki out for a walk. Carmilla reminds him that as much as she would want to, she can't get any vitamin D because she is a vampire after all. Genzou might be a massive weirdo, but he is also a Sigma, and this doesn't faze him at all, and he makes her take him out with an umbrella nevertheless by planting her face first into the floor with her pants for everyone to enjoy. Having been fully humiliated, Carmilla finally agrees to take Hiroyuki out for a walk. To emphasize Hiroyuki's importance, Genzou tells Carmilla that her sorry ass is worth much less than Hiroyuki, and Carmilla almost starts crying like a baby. A few hours after that, Carmilla finally returns and her confidence reaches a new low because some kids surrounded her and called her Black Pants Girl. She tries to riz Hanako to get some sympathy points, but Hanako straight up punches her in the stomach. Just at that moment, Princess Cheesecakes enters through the door all happy that she finally found Genzou, although Genzou's and his emo little haircut have got no idea who she is. Genzou is immediately put under arrest by the feminist patrol, and they are already reading him the Miranda rights cause the princess immediately started accusing him of doing some very R18 things to her. Even Shigure is already preparing to visit Genzou in jail. But Genzou becomes Saul Goodman for a second and manages to defend himself, and Carmilla and Hanako let him go. Genzou still doesn't remember where he knows her from and even starts thinking about whether he's seen her in any red light districts, and the princess gets even more pissed. Genzou finally remembers and takes the princess from behind, grabbing her by the waist. And what she thinks is a hug turns into another German suplex and another flashing of her pants towards everyone chilling outside Genzou's house. A few minutes later, the princess is now chilling with a cup of tea, although her reputation is irreparably damaged. Genzou, being the savage he is, still doesn't want to apologize, arguing that the spoiled little princess deserved it. The princess finally introduces herself and drops the bomb about Genzou actually being the hero. Carmilla isn't buying this at all though, saying that he is just an animal-loving kinky dude. Genzou starts fighting her because of this statement, but she doesn't back down, even saying that heroes are worthless cucks and criminals. The princess starts fighting her too, defending the honor of heroes, and shit is hitting the fan. The two of them then start having a sausage measuring contest about which one has been humiliated by Genzou more. Princess Cheesecakes wants to bring Genzou with her, but Genzou still doesn't understand why he has to unalive the Demon King. And the princess says that the Demon King simply must be unalived and gives no actual explanation. Genzou straight up refuses, saying that he wants to open up his own pet shop with demon beasts in it. The princess gets super butthurt and brings her royal guards to take Genzou with them. However, Genzou wipes the floor with all of them in a matter of minutes, and they all lie on the floor feeling sad and pathetic. Genzou, still pissed as hell, grabs the princess and showcases his newest move on her, the rolling cradle, which ends up with the princess humiliating her sad self yet again and showing her cheeks and pants to everyone. The very next day, she comes to their house again and gets flipped as a pancake once more. The day after that, she does the same, except she wears some pink pants as a little treat for everyone watching. A few hours after the princess leaves, Genzou is mopping the yard and is deep in thought, thinking if one day the princess may forget underwear altogether. Carmilla and Hanako are watching him and making theories that he is about to say to Shigeru that he has fallen in love with her. Genzou tries to tell Shigeru what he wants and she genuinely just doesn't give a fuck, yet Genzou tells her anyways. He has been thinking about whether the Demon King is fluffy and is wondering what kind of a beast he really is, like the kinky weirdo he is, and even adds that just thinking about it is making him drool. Shigeru tells him to go to the guild and ask around there, but basically no one has any info on the Demon King and are all hyping Genzou up to fight him, to which he responds by knocking poor Heat out, who just happened to be here. The sticky-fingered Shigeru doesn't hesitate to steal his weapon for the 15th time either. Back in the house, Hanako and Carmilla talk about how Genzou might actually be the hero despite his incredibly sus and kinky behavior, and if that is the truth, how they must not let him find out any more info on the Demon King. Being the dumbass he is, Carmilla understands this as a calling card to immediately go and give Genzou all the wrong clues about his appearance. Genzou of course starts to drool and draws a sketch of the Demon King, and he promptly gives it to the princess, who has just entered the house, which she rips into pieces, disregarding as bullshit. The princess is back again to ask Genzou to join her, and just as Genzou grabs her she starts feeling very frisky again, but Genzou just smashes her head first into the floor as usual. The princess tells them that the demons have summoned another Demon King, and Genzou is excited as cause now he is imagining what kind of animal this new one could be and immediately goes on a quest to find him. Meanwhile, Joanna, Rose, and Mao are riding around in a carriage and are promptly stopped by some monkey beasts, and they decide that this is prime time for Mao to finally show why he's here. Mao, despite being a massive loser, manages to smack the monkeys up no problem. Just then a tiny purple doggo approaches him and Mao practically shits himself. A few hours later they create a mini army and are on their way to the orc settlement to ask around for Genzou. Mao goes into the settlement and is very blood hungry, so he decides to fight the king. On the other hand, while searching for this new Demon King, the gang follow the demon beast's stinky scents and run into two orcs who tell Genzou what just happened in the orc village. Genzou and the useless gang hurry to the village and find that the king has already lost the battle. They tell Genzou that this new Demon King is a human fighting in the same form as him, and show him a Pablo Picasso level picture they drew of him, which Genzou immediately recognizes as Mao, getting a little turned on at just the thought of a reunion. A few days later, Shigeru is looking at something mysterious in her drawer and is happy that none of the useless squad has stolen it from her, although she is the one who likes to steal shit in the first place. When everyone goes to bed, they leave Hiroyuki to sleep outside, and just as he is chilling with zero thoughts behind his head like the cute little idiot he is, three dark figures resembling Gang, Miss Shaw, and the pirate wannabe dude approach, ready to steal poor old gullible Hiroyuki. The next morning, Genzou is trying to feed one of his minions in a cage. Carmilla is passed out drunk like the pathetic loser she is, while Hanako and Shigeru are just chilling thinking about whether they should leave and get new housemates. Princess Altina waddles into the house shouting at Genzou to accept to join her and defeat the Demon King, but Genzou cares so little that he can't even get her name close to right. She gets a bit pissed at that and then gets even more annoyed when Genzou refuses, even though she has already been in this exact situation 65 times before. After insulting Shigeru's awful cooking yet still eating 2 full plates, the princess tells them that the Demon King from another world has attacked an orc village, which they already knew about from the orcs. Genzou reveals that he knows about Mao but is cautious to reveal anything about his pathetic wrestling life he lived before. Just as Princess Altina finally thinks that Genzou is going to accept his duty as a hero, he savagely orders her to move out of the way so he can take Hiroyuki out for a walk. Immediately after going outside, Genzou realizes that Hiroyuki is gone and shit hits the fan. Meanwhile, Mao, Joanna, and Rose are looking for Genzou when they see that 2 super dumb monkeys in their army are fighting over a piece of paper that they think has some R18 rated stuff on it. They show the paper to them and it turns out to be a poster from the wrestling tournament. Mao recognizes Genzou from the German suplex pose, and Joanna and Rose recognize Carmilla cause everyone and their grandmothers know what her cheeks in underwear look like. Rose and Joanna think that Carmilla also may have joined the hero but don't really give it much thought since she is weak as shit. The monkeys still think that the paper must have been super sus since everyone got so worked up just by looking at it. A few hours later, Genzou is out on the street looking for the little idiot Hiroyuki when he runs into his dream wifey, the kobold lady. He grabs her with his frisky hands and asks her if she's seen Hiroyuki. The kobold lady is finally down bad for some Genzou action, but Genzou just leaves her and goes to find Hiroyuki. She is pretty sad that she got all worked up and even used a new shampoo, but Genzou just shaked her off like a pile of shit. The whole Scooby-Doo useless gang is looking for Hiroyuki all over town. Even the princess, though, she is getting humiliated on every step of the way, with people still calling her Princess Cheesecakes and even showing their own cheeks to her. Just as they are losing all hope of finding him, cause they are also incredibly useless at completing even the easiest of tasks. The King of Nerds Claus says that he saw him at a nobleman's mansion that very day. They very quickly go to the mansion and find Hiroyuki there, although a filthy rich stuck-up dude has renamed him Catherine and he is now playing with the dude's daughter. Given that he is no smarter than a wet burrito, Hiroyuki really doesn't care that he has been kidnapped and is playing with the girl all happy and jolly. The gang tries to argue with the rich dude to get Hiroyuki back, but the guy says that he bought him fair and square, and that he had no idea he was stolen. Hanako, being the stupid little brat she is, says that she is right, and Carmilla, the cheeks kisser, immediately backs her up, which leads to Genzou mushing her insides with his elbow. The princess, being an entitled little girl, immediately thinks that they will just buy him back without problems, but almost unalives herself when she sees how much the rich dude paid for Hiroyuki. Being broke as they don't even have close to this kind of money, and at that exact moment the little girl runs up to the table holding Hiroyuki, and just as Genzou thinks that Hiroyuki will jump in his lap, the savage little idiot jumps over him to go get some food. The princess realizes that this is a perfect chance to get Genzou in her debt and starts sprinting to the castle like Usain Bolt to get the cash needed to get Hiroyuki back. Genzou realizes that there is no way for them to pay for Hiroyuki, so he starts crying like a loser and wants to leave. However, the little girl Maria feels sorry for how lame and pathetic Genzou is and wants to give Hiroyuki back to him upon hearing that he was originally his. The father is a stuck-up idiot though and still requests at least half of his money back, which Genzou and his broke friends still don't have. Maria uses her puppy eyes on her dad and the dude starts dropping the price like crazy. Eventually, after having the price 15 times, he gets to the final, smallest price possible, saying that if they can't match that they don't even deserve to get Hiroyuki back, and they go home to think about it. Genzou then proves that he is the biggest loser amongst losers, realizing that they are so broke that they don't even have that much. Luckily, just as Genzou was about to give up his friend Hiroyuki up like the brokey he is, the money-hungry Shiger takes out a fat-ass sum of coins from her mystery drawer that she has been disgustingly hoarding, and it proves to be just enough to get poor little Hiroyuki back. Meanwhile, Carmilla is sick of all the stomach punching she has recently been getting and asks Hanako to rub some lotion on her stomach while thirsting for her in the most disgusting possible way, which leads to Hanako making her already dark purple bruised stomach even more bruised. A few hours later, they return to the rich dude's mansion and finally pay his ass the money he wants, so Hiroyuki is free to go. They also ask him who it was that sold Hiroyuki to him, and he reveals that it was none other than the #1 wimp losers, gang, Miss Shaw, and Edgar. While all this is happening, the three of them are basking in the luxury that the Hiroyuki money has got them, which is short-lived cause Genzou has already spawned in front of their house and is about to tear everything up. He says that he isn't even here about petting, and has started the process of making bone meal out of the world-class loser that is gang. Edgar tries to use his knife on him, but Genzou turns him into a pretzel, and Miss Shaw becomes one of the floorboards. Meanwhile, the princess has finally arrived at the mansion, only to realize that her help is worthless. Back at the Genzou household, while approaching the house, they see some demon beasts guarding the entrance, and Genzou immediately starts salivating just thinking about their fur. The demon beasts are actually a part of Mao's army, and Mao himself as well as Joanna and Rose are chilling in their kitchen. Joanna starts yapping and introducing herself with her Wi-Fi password name, and Genzou and Mao have a heartwarming reunion which ends with both of them getting a little sus. Joanna starts accusing Hanako of losing to the hero, and Carmilla is having none of that, so Rose and her start fighting. Mao brings an end to all this bickering since he only wants to hear Genzou's voice like the true beta cuck he is. Mao challenges Genzou to a match, and stupid idiots Joanna and Rose think that this is a battle to the death, so they challenge Hanako to a match too. Just at that moment, Claus spawns inside the house and presents them with an offer to make another wrestling tournament. And this time his greedy ass has created even more ways for her and Shiger to earn money. Genzou accepts and starts his retraining arc by lifting some weights, just as Carmilla realizes how weak she is and begs Genzou to train her in her juicy melons. The next morning, Carmilla approaches Genzou and starts getting on his nerves about how he won't train her and instead only feeds his 7,000 animals. Genzou gets her in a chokehold because he knows that she really likes to be choked and tells her that he tried to wake her up at dawn yet she was sleeping on the couch passed out drunk and that he won't deal with such unprofessional behavior. After which she apologizes and says that she'll be serious cause she knows that she is so weak that she needs all the training she can get. They start weight training and Carmilla isn't used to feeling the sun and grass that much, kinda like all of you losers watching. Carmilla really wants to start touching Genzou's muscles up and learning wrestling moves, but Genzou doesn't want to hear about it. Carmilla then reminds herself that she has to suck up to her mistress Hanako, so she almost spills the beans and gives Genzou the lore dump about her and Hanako's family heritage, and their relations and beef with Joanna and Rose. Hanako quickly intervenes and knocks Carmilla out, telling clueless Genzou that Joanna is just her childhood friend and that her maid Rose once beat the crap out of Carmilla and that Carmilla wants revenge now. While this is going on in the yard, Claus and Shigure's money-hungry asses are thinking of new ways to rip the crowd watching the tournaments off. Hanako, the world record holder for the heaviest person ever, is just thinking about food in the food stands. A few hours of training later, Carmilla tells Genzou how she wants vengeance cause she was weak as shit the last time she fought Rose and she absolutely humiliated Hanako in front of the lowly wannabe Joanna. Genzou tells her that Mao was supposed to be his last opponent in his old world, which Carmilla imagines like some type of Avengers level fight, whereas it was actually a loser nerdy wrestling fight. Genzou gives her a training regimen, but it proves to be too much for her and she wants to refer to her drinking ways. Luckily, Genzou is there to stop her from giving in to her sins and forbids her any drinks for the duration of her training arc. During a break from training, Shigure tells Genzou that he is meant to come up with the roster for the tournament. So far he has come up with a few fights, and after realizing he is one fight short he goes over to Miss Cha and gang to ask them to fight in the tournament. They are scared shitless, but Daddy Genzou makes them come anyway while Edgar and Shigure discuss what they do best: money. Shigure seems to think that the first match, where Heat Haze and Seals 50 will be fighting some goofy ass dudes from Mao's army, will be pretty dull, so Genzou decides to dress Princess as a wrestler and have her fight as well to bring butts to the seats for the first match. The final matchups end up being Seals and Heat Haze, Orc King and the Kobold Dude, Miss Cha and gang for the team fights, Carmilla vs Rose, and finally Mao vs Genzou as the single fights. Later in the town, Shigure and Hanako hand out the promotional flyers cause that is pretty much the only thing Hanako won't be able to eat while everybody else trains super hard to smack the life out of Mao's army. Fast forward to a few days later and the tournament is just about to begin. Everybody is super hyped to see some R18 action in the ring, and the one girl who bought some muscles shirts last time is back with Shigure cause she's ready for some more juicy muscles. Unfortunately, Shigure tells her that they're not selling any more muscled merch and the girl just waddles home. At the same time in the changing rooms, Genzou is giving a motivational speech to his fighters and they all start looking up to him like wannabe Sigmas looking up to their pack leader, when Genzou actually ends up confessing that he is also in it for the prize money so that he can finally open his sorry pathetic looking pet shop. In the female changing rooms, the Princess Altina is kinda worried about her skimpy outfit, and Carmilla is trying to get through the tournament with no drinks and is hyping herself up. The tournament finally begins and the first match starts. Princess Cheesecakes gets very excited from all the cheering and decides to attack the monkey troops head on, which leads to her being face planted in the ground with her rice cakes for all to see. She feels humiliated at first but is back to feeling frisky when everyone cheers her on again after Seals and Heat Haze manage to get the victory. The second match proves that the Kobold and Orc King make a great pair as they smack up the pathetic members of Mao's army in a few seconds. In match 3, however, Miss Shaw and gang get their asses handed to them by some giants and they are looking as pathetic as ever, lying on the mat all bruised up and humiliated. The fourth match comes up and it's the battle of the maid skimpy servants Rose versus Carmilla. After a little struggle at the beginning, Carmilla remembers what Genzou taught her and manages to use a cool looking move on Rose and plant her head first into the floor. She gets up and starts celebrating prematurely like the dumb idiot she is, and Rose gets up and smacks her into the ground. Carmilla then starts crying like a bitch, but Hanako consoles her and says that she is not so useless after all, and that she is the winner in her eyes, and even gives her food for the first time, which leads Carmilla to cream her pants. Even Genzou compliments her shabby self by saying that it was actually a good fight. Before the final match, Genzou and Mao are looking at each other like two long-lost lovers ready to jump onto each other at any moment. Genzou immediately gets a fat L in the form of the kobold lady getting turned up at the sight of her husband winning his match and finally deciding that she wants to stay with him after all. Joanna and Rose are looking towards the ring, getting all happy about how Mao will wipe the floor with Genzou. But Hanako comes up and tells them about how they are dead wrong and how they will see what a loser Mao really is while not breaking eye contact and eating the chicken drumstick bone included like the true beastie psychopath she is. The fighters get introduced by the announcer, and Genzou is 20 pounds heavier than Mao because he has got a massive pair of nuts, something that Mao is missing. The battle finally starts, and at first both Mao and Genzou think that they are doing English or Spanish trend cause both of them are standing dead still. Mao thinks he has learned from his last matches with Genzou when Genzou turned him into a human mop and wiped the floor with him in the first 5 seconds of the match, as Mao always struck first, which is why he is now chilling and waiting to see if Genzou has grown a brain and if he will make any moves. Genzou decides that he has had enough waiting and strikes first, which is something Mao did not expect. Then Genzou explains to him that this match has been so painfully boring so far that the whole crowd fell asleep, and that is why he had to do something. Mao is still pissed that Genzou ran from the match, and Genzou explains that he was gonna wipe the floor with him and then open a pet shop, but he got sent here instead. Mao is overjoyed that the love of his life Genzou didn't actually run from him and just accidentally happened to find himself here. They both start laughing like idiots, and the guildmaster, who is the referee, has to stop them and tell them to get back to the match because the people are gonna start unaliving themselves over how horribly boring the final match has been up to that point. The match continues, and they quickly give each other an exposition dump about how they got there, what they have been instructed to do. And Joanna and Rose are about to start crying like a bunch of babies when they hear that Mao doesn't really care about being a demon king and taking on the hero and just wants to fight Genzou instead. Mao starts getting the upper hand and smashes Genzou into the mat, but then Hiroyuki enters the ring and Mao practically shits himself. Joanna and Rose kidnap Hiroyuki cause they realize that Mao is a wimp and is scared of cute little creatures. Genzou immediately jumps out of the ring and starts chasing Joanna and Rose, not giving a f about the match anymore. Bishal, Gang and Edgar see Genzou running and instinctively start running away from him too because they're already very used to doing it. Genzou runs them over like a fire truck and grabs Hiroyuki, giving him to the Giga Ant for safekeeping. He goes back to the ring super angry, thinking that the loser Mao made them go after Hiroyuki. The crowd is reaching their climax and can't take it anymore, and Mao's army and fans start fighting Genzou's army and fans, and shit hits the fan. Everyone is fighting and breaking all of the food stands, while Carmilla and Hanako, being the simple-minded idiots they are, just stand around and eat and drink. Mao does his ultra-lame special move Cannonball 450, but the Sigma Genzou is unfazed though and does his famous German suplex, planting Mao into the ground head first and winning the match. At that moment, all the fighting stops and everyone gets a little bit of post-nut clarity. Mao proclaims that he simply can't beat Genzou's weird furry animal obsession, and that people who have something to fight for are just built different, and also adds that he wants to keep fighting him in the future. Genzou says that he can fight him whenever he wants and offers him a hand up, making their lover bond even stronger. The hero army gets awarded the prize money, and Claus ends up giving Genzou the trophy, with everyone super happy that Genzou's pathetic weird dream of getting a pet shop is finally gonna be realized. Joanna and Rose are about to leave when they get intercepted by Hanako, who says that sad old Genzou is actually the true hero, and says that her and Carmilla will continue to observe him, giving Joanna and Rose her scary dragon eyes and telling them to piss off. Just as Shiger is about to receive her prize money by Claus, and her privates are already throbbing. Claus says that she will have to be the one to pay for all the damage everyone created whilst they were fighting each other, all the food that disgusting pig Hanako ate, and all the drinks. Claus reaches into the bag of gold to give her what is left after all of that and brings up another bill, meaning that these poor useless bastards are now in debt and Shigeru almost unalives herself on the spot. A few hours later, both armies eat and drink at the guild and everything is just about to become a full-on R18 party when Shigeru enters, all pissed that they are wasting even more money on food and drinks, but calms down when she sees how happy everyone truly is. The next day, Shigeru tries to get some money by selling Genzou's trophy and even manages to persuade the cashier to buy the trophy from her because of the rare metal it is made out of. Back at the Genzou house, world-class loser Mao decides to leave to begin his training arc in hopes of one day being able to beat Genzou. As Mao leaves, Genzou gets back to his loser activities that are feeding the billion animals in the house, and just then Shigeru comes back ready to rip him apart cause his lazy ass was supposed to go to the guild to get a quest so they can start off by earning back some of the money they lost. Hanako and Carmilla are also supposed to come. The guild master comes running and asks them to quickly handle a minotaur that has appeared. Genzou starts salivating just thinking about his fur. Hanako does the same just thinking about his delicious meat instead. And the entire useless gang slowly but surely start their journey towards the minotaur. This brings us to the end of Genzou's sus adventures. Thanks for sticking around until the end, you absolute legend. Comment furry cheeks down below to let us know you enjoyed it. Meanwhile, click on the screen to watch some of our other exciting videos. Until next time, stay awesome, stay AniGeek.